All right. Well, we're back. I think this went how we expected it to go. The Bears, they got man, that was not a fun game to watch. And the sad part is I'm not even disappointed because I didn't even let myself get my hopes up.
Yeah, same. I think that, I was expecting, the game to kind of work out the way that it did. And it's honestly funny that the scoreline really doesn't give that game justice at all. I mean, that it wasn't a game that really deserved to finish, just a touchdown apart. I mean, they started to get a little bit of offensive production late in the fourth quarter, but I think that a lot of the times we see the Bears kind of explode on offense in the fourth quarter is just because defenses are just kind of playing prevent defense at that time, and they can honestly just use the clock as their main form of defense, and it worked out perfectly for the Titans. I mean, they still ended up winning the game, pretty comfortably, and you just have to be disappointed with the way that the offense looks. I mean, the offensive line was giving up horrible pressure when it counted the most. I mean, it seems like any time that, they wanted to dial up a blitz package, they were going to get just massive penetration up and through the line. And it was really just nothing positive. I mean, the wide receivers made some spectacular catches, but that was the only time where I felt like the offense was clicking at all. And then we'd end up just throwing it behind the line of scrimmage again, trying to do just really quick passes, and that didn't start working until the defense dropped off late in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, and the thing is, I don't really blame this loss on Nick Foles all that much, and I can't even blame it all too much on Nagy because the offensive line really was just that bad. It was terrible. It was as expected. Horrible offensive line play. So I can't really blame Nick Foles and Matt Nagy that much. I actually thought Nick Foles had a couple really good throws in that game, but a lot of the time he had to throw off his back foot. He wasn't able to complete it. Anthony Miller ended up, getting that fumble. I don't know how much I blame him on that one either. He's trying to do his best. I mean, we're down late in the game. It just kind of is how it is sometimes, So yeah, you're right. This game was not close at all. This game was not close, and a lot of it was because of the offensive line. But there were still some mind-numbingly dumb choices by Matt Nagy in this game, and one of them I point to specifically was there were multiple times, again, second and long, second and 12, second and 13, where Matt Nagy decided to run the ball with this offensive line. Like that is inexcusable. That is inexcusably dumb. That doesn't work. He gets lucky every once in a while and gets these second and longs, but for the most part, they just turn out to be third and longs. And then it traps Nick Foles in a third down situation where they know he's going to be passing, so it's like you have no variability there. It's almost like by trying to create variability in the first two play calls, Matt Nagy ends up creating, non-variability in the third. Our third down plays are extremely predictable.
Yeah, and like you said, on those third down plays, it just allows, that front seven, whoever in the D-line and the linebackers that they're bringing to just kind of pin their ears back and go right after Nick Foles because, yeah, when you trap yourself in those third down and long situations, they know you're going to pass it, and that's why, Nick Foles is always having to get the ball out of his hands so quick, and I think given what he had, I think he did play a pretty good game, definitely his best one, I think, in a Bears uniform so far. But, yeah, at the same time, I mean, it was clear that when Foles had the time, he was going to find a receiver and make a good throw. But when he had pressure all up in his face, that's when, he started, having some tougher throws and not completing and not having as much of a success rate. But when he had the time, he was completing balls downfield. And I guess it really kind of shows you that the offensive line is definitely the main thing that's holding this offense back. But like you said, yeah, definitely some still inexcusable mistakes from Nagy. Honestly, I do agree with what you're saying a bit where, he's trying to think too hard about the problem and at the same time he's making it worse for himself, and you can't figure out, where this team is going. I mean, we'll see how Montgomery's concussion is now. I mean, Null comes in and looks decent, filling in for him, but how can we feel confident with, him being the primary option and Cordell Patterson, And it's just like, are we ever going to see Lamar Miller come up from the practice squad? What is going on with this whole situation?
Well, he was up. He was actually up this week. We elevated him, but we didn't play him at all. We elevated him, and he just sat behind. He just sat on the bench, which didn't make any sense to me. I was like, why are we going to? And I wonder if it had to do with his injuries, maybe, because they didn't. They're like, oh, he just tore his ACL. We don't want to. He's healing from that. We don't want to throw him against this terrible offensive line. I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but definitely questionable that Ryan Nall got this main backup starts. And tell me this, why is Cordell Patterson getting the only rotational snaps? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, I figure like most offenses right now in the NFL, I mean, they're using 3 running backs pretty consistently, with a pretty good rotation and clip. And this Bears team, yeah, you don't really see it. It's always Montgomery and then Cordell Patterson, which, I think Patterson, given the circumstances, has done all right. He had a couple good runs, yesterday, which I was happy about. But other than that, I mean, this running game obviously has not been cutting it. And I'm not really sure where we go on if we lose Montgomery for a significant period of time. I mean, it's just, with how much of a weapon that Montgomery is in the passing game as well, I mean, that's concerning because we're always throwing these quick check down passes. And, I guess Ryan Null is going to have to be sure-handed, whatever. I'm lost with this team right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that the one thing that I also was really disappointed in is when the Bears came out, they were moving the ball pretty well, actually. They were moving the pocket, they were rolling out, something that we actually don't see the Bears do a lot. For some reason, Matt Nagy, even though he's coined this offensive guru genius, he doesn't move the pocket that much, and that's just never been something he's done. He doesn't run a whole bunch of RPO. He runs a fairly, a fairly not very exciting offense right now. You look at how much the Rams, how much they do play action, right? It's like 60% of their snaps. It makes it a lot easier on the quarterback. It relieves a lot of the offensive line play struggles. It just makes everything easier all around, right? It turns the field, it cuts the field in half. But at the end of the day, we come out, we have this game plan, we're moving the ball, and then that seems to last about one possession. And then all of a sudden, Matt Nagy reverts back to the same old crap that he always does. And that's what's very frustrating as a Bears fan is his game plans look identical week to week. And I actually think we should throw in a little segment on our show as to if we can actually describe what his game plan was, what his strategy was this week, and what his strategy is the next week. This week, I have no clue. It looked like he clearly came out and he was trying to, move the ball, roll it out, roll Nick Foles out. It was working, and then he abandoned it. And he went back to, I'm going to try to be smart and run it on second and long. I'm going to try to do all these, screen passes. I'm going to try to just attack downfield as I normally would. I'm going to try to run the ball as I normally would, despite having everything against us. 4-2, yep, I'm going to run that. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and it is puzzling a bit because I feel like we've found enough things that this offense does right. It's not many things, but they're pretty good when they working on like no huddle or a faster paced offense. And Nick Foles does all right, rolling out of the pocket, moving that pocket. And, like you said, we abandon it for what? The knowledge of the offense we know doesn't work that nets us like 0 points over 3 quarters. And actually, quick little, trailing off topic real quick. I remember they said in the game that the Bears have 7 points in the third quarter this year. 7 points. And that still stands because they didn't score until the early fourth quarter. That is unbelievable.
Yeah, the only game they ended up scoring in was the Buccaneers game.
Yeah, which I mean probably was their best performance all year at this point.
Yeah, how is this the same team?
Yeah, they've taken a dramatic slide right now, and I know that the offensive line is the ultimate handicap, but really Nagy should be able to put together an offense or something that he knows can work for at least some part of the game because, the defense all game wasn't giving up that much yardage. I mean, the points, the scoreboard wasn't never really close, But, as far as yardage wise, the Bears were pacing the Titans most of the game. But, costly, the scoop and score from Desmond King, that hurt. Honestly, that probably was the death nail in this game. And, the Titans didn't have to do that much offensively. Yeah, I was worried about Derrick Henry. I was worried he didn't really do too much. The Bears defense, stood their ground pretty well. And even though Khalil Mack had a quiet game, only that one tackle late in the fourth quarter. So, you can't complain with the Bears defense, but it's just, once again, it seems like we're doing the same thing every week here. We're saying what is wrong with the offense, and you bring up a good point. What was the game plan? How were we trying to beat Tennessee? And I didn't see any kind of I don't know, like, logical line of reasoning, rationale for why Nagy was picking the plays that he was, but other than that's kind of what he feels comfortable doing because we see it week in, week out, other than he was just following his own kind of trend.
Yeah. I mean, it seems kind of mindless what he's calling. Like, it really seems mindless what is going on. We really, really need to think about the future of this team as a whole. And I say that 10 times over. A lot of Bears fans are not going to like to hear this, but Allen Robinson, should we really be paying him $18.5 million when this offense has no offensive line? I mean, they have offensive line, but they have such massive holes on the offensive line. They don't have a quarterback. We have nothing to offer him to make him succeed. That $18.5 million, unless we have a coherent plan to bring in a ton of offensive line talent and a great quarterback, paying Allen Robinson $18.5 million is not going to help the offense any more than where it's at now, and it's going to limit us as to what we can do with the offensive line and the quarterback. So when you think about it in that line of reasoning, I think that there's a solid chance that we're not going to see Allen Robinson on this team. I think there's a solid chance we're not going to trade him. I think that there's a solid chance he just walks. Do I want that to happen? No. Ideally, we would be able to make everything work and find a quarterback in the draft and add offensive linemen and keep Allen Robinson. And then we have this, really nice offensive group. But I don't know if we can fix both the offensive line and quarterback and then also keep Allen Robinson as far as cap space goes.
Unfortunately, this franchise hasn't been able to fix the quarterback position in quite some time now. So I think it's honestly a reasonable worry that they wouldn't be able to put a good quarterback and a good offensive line together, given they struggle at putting one together so bad. And it took a while to build the great offensive line that we kind of had at the end of the John Fox era. And, unfortunately, we're not really at that point anymore. So, I agree with you there. And, you almost feel bad for the man, really. I mean, he should be playing in a much better offense. I think I saw a stat that said that Allen Robinson is going to get 3 1,000-yard seasons with Blake Bortles, Mitchell Trubisky, and Nick Foles. And it's kind of just, he's never really crazy. Had like that elite quarterback throwing the ball to him in a really good offense. I mean, you almost wonder how he'd be almost on a team like Detroit. I mean, honestly, with just how Stafford could get the ball to him. It just even the most slight improvement. But, I'd be shocked if he gets a long-term extension, but I think that there is a possibility that we give him a franchise tag, that we franchise tag. Knowing this team, I think that there definitely is the chance because, I think while everyone else is calling for, a rebuild / retool, whatever you want to call it, I don't know if the Bears organization sees it the same way. They could very much be happy with where they're sitting right now. Maybe not with the 3-game slide that they're on, but with the record and how they feel this team is going, who knows where the Bears organizational mindset is, and where the backing of Nagy and Pace is.
Yeah, the thing that's frustrating is counter to the John Fox era where we just had no weapons offensively. You know, we towards the end of that, I mean, we lost Matt Forte. We didn't have any, you know, we had Cameron Meredith. He goes down with an injury thanks to Mike Glennon on a pass that should have never been thrown. Anyways, we didn't have the weapons, but this offense has weapons. They have a good amount of weapons too. I mean, Allen Robinson, Darnell Mooney, Anthony Miller, sure he dropped some, but he's still a good wide receiver. I mean, this team has some notable weapons, and still we're 29th, like to 32nd in the NFL on offense. I mean, that is embarrassing. That is really embarrassing for Matt Nagy, for this team. But yeah, you know, Allen Robinson, I think that, you know, he's especially he's a great leader. I think he's someone who's a really good locker room guy, and I honestly don't. I think the reason why we haven't signed him yet is that Ryan Pace just wants to see what's available in the free agency quarterback market. Because let's say, you know, somehow Aaron Rodgers becomes available because of just because of the Packers and him deciding to mutually split. I know they're going to have some cap space issues. They have David Bakhtiari, Aaron Jones, a lot of big pieces up, and they're really tight on cap space right now. Maybe they say, hey, you know what? We like what's going on with Jordan Love. We think it's time to really try to make a switch in this team and try to go all out with a different quarterback on a rookie contract. And maybe that's what they end up doing. So they do this mutual split, and then Aaron Rodgers is available. So on the more realistic end, Dak Prescott, you know, maybe they want to see how Dak Prescott's contract situation, you know, goes through. See just exactly who's available and not lock ourselves into anything long term until we know exactly where this team is at. And I believe that's the right move by Ryan Pace.
Yeah, I mean, that's what has to be done. I think that, you know, we have to be thinking very much long term for this team right now. I mean, right now they're not in the best place, you know, present day, and there's definitely issues are very evident, and what's holding this team back is very clear. So, I'd hope that, you know, Ryan Pace and the rest of upper management can figure out how to sort all this out, and whether or not, you know, someone like Matt Nagy is in the future. And I'm sure, you know, Ryan Pace is being evaluated in the same way. I think, you know, you and I, Austin, are very much on the same page. Just, you know, I definitely believe that Ryan Pace will be back here next season, but, you know, I'm sure he's being evaluated too, and, you know, it is still a bit of a reflection on him, the struggles that are coming down. But I believe that, you know, the problem isn't the personnel. It's kind of what's being done with them. And, you know, especially offensively, yeah, I mean, we have these weapons and, you know, it's great, but it's getting the ball to them that's the issue. So, you know, I think that at least for the Bears right now, the good thing, you know, on the positive side is that we definitely know where the issues are at. I think it's clear as day. And it's just a matter of going out there and solving them.
And we're in a good position to fix them as well. I mean, unfortunately, although that we are losing this year, we are playing ourselves into a better draft pick. There's some really good quarterbacks available coming up in this next draft. You know, actually a good amount of names. Hopefully the Bears can actually get up and get one of their top guys. And then as far as the offensive line goes, there's some offensive line talent in free agency. Again, we have our entire draft pick selection this year, so we can actually, you know, go after a big name guy. So yeah, it's going to be, you know, it's good. We're going to be able to actually make a significant amount of change on this roster. The question that I would really have as a Bears fan is, how long is this going to take to cement? How long do we have with this defense? Are we going to go a little bit more long-term, draft a quarterback, or are we really going to try to go all out and get a big name free agent quarterback? I don't know yet. I mean, I think there's valid reasons for both of them, but what I have to say, I would be extremely disappointed in this team is if we just mail it in again and find like a Ryan Fitzpatrick like quarterback, and then they try to sell us on him. That's not gonna do it for me. I would not watch the Bears next season if that's the case.
Yeah, that'd be very disappointing.
But I ultimately don't think that's gonna be the case, and you know, this week sucked, but we have to stay optimistic for the future, and hopefully we can beat the Vikings. That's gonna be a nail biter, unfortunately.
Yeah, it really will be, and you know, we'll be talking about that more next week, and y'all will hear about that. Definitely a big divisional game coming up.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Bear down.
Bear down.